Yes.
So, yes.
And some of the reasons that we have spoken about are things that apparently some people within the Board of Trustees have raised.
What issues?
The issues about
Cost
of the
the
project?
issues about
lack of good governance.
about basically
Good governance.
Did they say it in
there are
anyway?
questions that would make
Oh,
it
yeah.
look like the trustees are actually just figureheads without any proper authority over the National Cathedral and what happens with it. You see?
So
I'll
you are
read-
saying some former members or
Yes.
some present members?
I'm just going to provide some information. Later on, we can get to that.
Okay.
If you look at, I'm going to read excerpts of a document for you, right?
What's the document?
This is a document dated 22nd June 2022.
Last year.
Yes. Written on the letterhead of the Ghana Charismatic Bishops Conference that
Okay.
I have intercepted.
Okay.
These days I'm using that
No,
word.
you have not intercepted it. It has come into your possession.
Okay, whichever way.
Because interception can
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
That's come into my possession.
Yeah, that's right.
You are the lawyer. I will go with you. Bernard. And for instance,
And who is the document coming from?
when I'm done, I'll review who it is.
Yeah.
You let me finish what I'm doing.
Okay.
This person expresses grave concerns, for instance, about
And this was a document written to the board
written to the board.
of trustees. National Cathedral. Okay.
This person, for instance, raises questions about the role and responsibilities of the Executive Council and the Board of Trustees. Let me read for you what he says. He says, I do recall that I spoke about the need for an Executive Council in my third letter. In the same way that a bank has an executive management which takes decisions concerning its major financial decisions, it is important for us to have an Executive Council which is responsible for the huge expenditure of the National Cathedral Project. This Executive Council of the National Cathedral must be distinctively different from the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral. The Board of Trustees must be a non-executive group of directors who hold the vision of the President in trust and who will fight to unite, involve and mobilize the church to support the National Cathedral.
Okay.
It is important that these two institutional bodies exist but are separate and distinct in their functions and responsibilities. When the role and responsibilities of the Board of Trustees is clear, it will enable all of us to function expertly and excellently in defense of this project. As things stand today, we cannot explain many of the questions that are being asked in the press. Indeed, the National Cathedral is in danger of being used as a tool for political fights between the political forces in the nation. I do not think any members of the Board of Trustees would like to find themselves caught in the crossfire between our political parties. Then he talks about the formation of an executive council for the National Cathedral. This is very informative, Bernard. Listen to this. I suggest that an executive council be formed made up of government appointees and church-nominated appointees. This executive council will function as the executive directors and will ultimately be responsible to answer for the finance, the expenditure, and the monies paid out on behalf of the National Cathedral Project. As it stands today, I cannot say, as I said in my earlier letters, that I am aware of or responsible in any way for the huge amounts of money that have been paid out for the National Cathedral Project. I am unaware of the details, intentions, and rationales of the monies that have been paid out to consultants, to contractors, to fund international trips, for national and international fundraising programs, for musicians and singers and other things. I believe most trustees cannot explain the technical details and rationale surrounding all these payments, which are now the subject of public scrutiny. It must be noted that we, as trustees, did not appoint the world-class architect, nor did we come up with the cathedral project costing $350 million.
Oh.
I believe such costs would be determined by a quantity surveyor, and we have not had any interactions with a quantity surveyor. The church in Ghana does not have such resources, and the church leaders who are trustees know this. He talks about the formation of a governmental council for the National Cathedral.
Okay.
A purely governmental council for the National Cathedral will also be helpful. As at now, it is clear that the government is actually taking huge decisions concerning the cathedral and not the trustees. It will be good for us going forward to have a governmental council whose identity can be known to all and who can answer questions on behalf of the government. It may be recalled that I asked Sir David Ajayi at a trustees meeting whether he had received a contract from the government to build the National Cathedral. I asked him if he had received a contract in the same way that someone will receive a governmental contract to build a dam or a bridge. And he answered that indeed, he has such a contract with the government of Ghana.
Okay.
He said he had a contract to build the National Cathedral from the government.
Okay.
Clearly, this is not a contract from the trustees. We, the trustees, did not, therefore, give him any contract and will be unable to explain issues to do with the payment of monies to the cathedral. The trustees, therefore, cannot answer most questions about money used for the cathedral, and it will be unfair to ask them to do so. A governmental council on the National Cathedral is essential going forward.
So he proposes.
He proposes that.
Executive council different from the board.
Yes.
And now a governmental council, which will then take responsibility for some of the decisions that you've just made.
I have 3 more points to make quickly, then Sky can deal with other things. He talks about the expansion of the Board of Trustees and then the way forward. Let me deal with those 2 points. The Board of Trustees should be expanded to represent the whole Church of Ghana. As we speak, the Board of Trustees represents a segment of the church and therefore allows those who are not represented on this board to take sides against the National Cathedral Project. The representation of the Board of Trustees, when expanded and well thought through, will help to preserve the unity of the church and prevent sections of the church from accusing us of fighting against us. All segments of the church will feel honored when they are made members of the Board of Trustees and have a chance to engage with the president. Then he talks about the way forward. I suggest that the design of the National Cathedral be overhauled to make it possible to build it under our current circumstances. The design can be made to look almost exactly as has been presented by Sir David Ejay, and just as the president has approved. However, many design details can be modified to make this cathedral buildable and affordable. I would personally offer to engage and discuss with these consultants if my services are needed or wanted.
This person sounds like a builder.
Yes. Review of the cost of the National Cathedral. The cost of the National Cathedral project should be completely overhauled. Instead of building a $350 million church, well, yes.
Oh, so that was the amount.
Yes. I suggest that the cathedral should be built at a fraction of this cost. You will recall that I pointed out that many of the huge projects in Ghana, including Villaggio, EcoBank Headquarters, Jubilee House, Ministry of Defense, Airport Terminal 3, National Theatre, 1 Airport Square, and Accra Mall, have been built at a fraction of the amount we are quoting for the cathedral.
Take your time. He said, I pointed out that many of the huge projects in Ghana, including Villaggio, EcoBank Headquarters, Jubilee House, Ministry of Defense, Airport Terminal 3, these are new airports.
Yes.
And National Theatre, 1 Airport Square, and Accra Mall were all built at a fraction of the amount being quoted for the cathedral.
Yeah.
From my experience in building,
Wow.
we can still build the cathedral at a fraction of the cost. The cost of $350 million for the National Cathedral, in my estimation, is unattainable by the church.
Beshika.
Indeed, our executive director has told us we are expected to raise only 3% of the money. We must ask this executive director questions, Bernard. If that is the case, it places a burden on the government to come up with a very large amount of money when we're not supposed to build this with government money.
Maybe the rest will be donors.
It is possible, and it apparently happens.
So 3% church.
Because later on we will discover that an idea was mooted to go and collect a loan to build the cathedral.
Forgive.
It is possible for the National Cathedral to get a loan, but I do not know who is going to approve of such a loan or guarantee such a loan in the midst of the current world financial crisis.
Especially when the cathedral is a tourism facility that will supposedly attract tourism dollars to pay for it, over which payback period?
Quickly, let me wrap this up for Sky.
So end up with the fundraising.
Yes, the fundraising. The fact that the church cannot raise such an amount, as shown by the results of our fundraising efforts so far, and the fact that the government may not be in a position to guarantee such a loan, means that we have to think of another way to fund the building of the National Cathedral. I do believe that the fundraising methods we have attempted have not yielded much. Indeed, some of the programs we have held have cost more than the monies we have raised from them.
Charlie, this is...
Absolutely.
I suggest another, let me repeat that line, I like it. Indeed, some of the programs we have held have cost more than the monies we have raised from them. I suggest another form of fundraising where we will be guaranteed more donations from denominations, churches, individuals, businessmen, and corporate bodies. I will be happy to discuss this if the committee is interested in that. I am a firm believer in the president's vision. I believe that the public can see and is questioning the fact that we have spent almost 6 years since the sword cutting of this project, as well as over $30 million of public funds, to excavate a massive pit in the center of the city.
Ghana, the center of Africa.
I do believe that many of the questions that are being asked and held at the National Cathedral Project are reasonable and legitimate questions by objective citizens who just want answers to their questions.
The Lord bless you, sir.
The right response to some of the questions being asked would be for us to adjust our strategy so that we can build a national cathedral even in these difficult times. Continuing to pay contractors $40,000 a month as we wait to procure a huge loan in this hostile atmosphere sounds dicey to me.
Wow.
I do believe that almost 6 years down the line, we need to look at a different approach to achieve our goal of building God's house in Ghana. I wish to conclude by saying that we can arise and shine by building the house of God in spite of all the challenges and difficulties we are encountering. We can build the house of God in our time. Then goes on to end with Isaiah 60, verses 1 and 2.
Wow.
Thank you. Signed by Dag Heward-Mills, Ghana Charismatic Bishops Conference.
So he wrote this letter to the chairman of the Board of Trustees in June.
You see,
essentially questioning the approach, questioning the strategy, the makeup of the organization, and imploring for a new way forward, saying that let's change strategy, let's reduce the cost, let's get more accountability, let's answer citizens' questions. Now, this is
basically suggesting that the board of trustees is not exactly in charge,
directly involved.
Exactly.
So this is June. Do you know if anything happened since?
Well, we have it on authority that he has since tendered in his letter of resignation.
So sorry, the thing you read was June.
Yeah.
Yes. So in August he resigned.
Oh.
So in August, on the 14th of August 2022, he wrote a letter to the chairman of the board of trustees, and it is titled Resignation from the National Cathedral Board of Trustees. The letter is about, it's actually 6 pages long, but I will just pick out some of the highlights, basically to make the point. And also to make the point that apparently he had written previously, repeatedly, making his concerns known.
So what Godfrey read was on the first
Yeah,
one.
that's right. It was just the penultimate document he wrote to the chairman of the board.
Wow.
And paragraph 1 of his letter of resignation says, I am a firm believer in the president's vision to build a national cathedral for Ghana. I wholeheartedly support the president's ambition to build a cathedral for Ghana to the glory of our God and have desired to freely contribute to the project in every way possible. I put my thoughts, ideas, suggestions, questions, and comments in writing for discussions at our meetings so that they could be addressed in an organized fashion. Further, it is out of respect to the Board of Trustees that I have spent several long hours to write and address the chairman and other honorable members of the Board of Trustees in a thoughtful and coordinated fashion. Thank you for the audience to address my last letter written to the Board of Trustees dated the 22nd of June 2022. Respectfully, there are matters arising from our conversation at the meeting of the Board of Trustees on the 8th of August 2022. He proceeds to say, our meeting on the 8th of August 2022 did not address satisfactorily the issues I put forward in my letter to the Board of Trustees, dated the 22nd day of June 2000.
The letter Godfrey just read.
Exactly. I do feel that the treatment of the issues I have raised in my several letters have been unfortunate. My letters have been ignored in the past, not attended to for years, and at best addressed flippantly. You may recall I have spoken passionately and written extensively about the cost, the design, the location, the funding, the mobilization of the churches, and the role of the trustees. These, if heeded to, would have made our project more achievable. Generally speaking, my inputs, my opinions, and my letters have been trivialized and set aside. He goes on to say, as per the president's verbal appointment of myself at the beginning of this project, I was named as one of the Board of Trustees and have approached our work on the Board of Trustees as diligently as I can. In recent revelations at a board meeting, I learned to my surprise that I am not duly so registered as a director of the company of the National Cathedral of Ghana, a company limited by guarantee. Instead, some other people whom I have never met are real trustees of this esteemed board. I do not believe this is an oversight, but a deliberate exclusion from the board. 6 years is a long time to correct this failure to register me if it was indeed an administrative lapse. It goes on to say that I have therefore accepted for some time now that I am not a trustee of the National Cathedral, but I have still sought to help the cathedral because I believe in the present vision and I do not have to be a legally registered trustee to do so. I refer to myself in this letter as a trustee because even though I am not privy to most of the weighty decisions of the board, I am referred to as such. The role of the state and the church in this project continues to be unclear. This lack of clarity is robbing our vision of the validity it needs. Over and over, I have asked that we address this appropriately and urgently because there are many dire implications to the trustees and the individuals involved in this project. Now, he goes on to say, to speak about some other things, but let me now take you to basically the meat of what he says, because Godfred touched on some of the key things that he raised, and basically he cataloged those things again, the concerns that he's raised about how the project is being handled, how trustees are not being made to take decisions, that government officials are taking decisions when they are supposed to be the board of trustees, and how these things are undermining the integrity of the people who are supposed to be members of the board of trustees, and many, many, many things. And then he comes on to paragraph 12 of his letter to say that if I do not know all these things, Godfred mentioned them earlier, and how they are being done, I cannot claim to be a trustee who is managing the business of the National Cathedral. At this point, I realize that I'm unable to function on this board and wish to withdraw and resign from the board of trustees.
So he resigned.
Exactly. I have waited for clear and unambiguous clarifications and responses on the different issues, including the roles, the responsibilities, and the liabilities of us, the trustees, the government, and all other unknown and invisible stakeholders. All I have received is a condescending and disdainful response for or to my letters.
Please.
In the last few paragraphs, he says, my support for the construction of the National Cathedral for Ghana is unflinching. I have desired and supported this project ardently from the beginning. No one, including members on the board of trustees, can ascribe to me the posture of one who is an outsider or one who has not and does not support this vision. It is unfortunate, he says, that my letters over the last 6 years of this project seem to be more of an aggravating annoyance than some help to the building of the cathedral. Charlie. Unfortunately, I cannot continue to function on a committee if my input is perceived as opposition to the cause. I am truly sorry to have come across as a stranger, an outsider, and a troublemaker.
Who is this copied to?
It's copied to the Executive Director of the National Cathedral Secretariat, Archbishop Charles Palmer Buckle, Most Reverend Justice Ofe Akrofi, Right Reverend Professor Emmanuel Mate, and Most Reverend T.K. Awachepra.
There's also more.
Yeah, and he goes on to say, Reverend Professor Cephas Omenyo, right? Archbishop Duncan Williams, Reverend Eastwood Anaba, Reverend Dr. Joyce Aye, Reverend Dr. Frimpong Manso, Reverend Victor Kusi Boateng, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, and Mr. Ken.
These are the Okbes of the...
Charlie, these are the members of
the spiritual governance of the...
They are the Kamachu. The Chaco Stick members.
So he addressed it to the Executive Secretary and then copied to the Director of the Cathedral Secretary. That's the gentleman we spoke about. And then Bamabako Akrof. So this is everybody.
And you know...
when was it dated?
This one, August 14th.
So he left. He resigned.
Yes. Yeah, he resigned. It's important that he says. Let me read the last three paragraphs.
If I may.
To
nail the point.
Exactly. For me, it will be a great tragedy
Okay.
if we are not able to accomplish this vision of the president by 2024, it would have been a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we would have made to slip away over an 8-year period. I would like to state clearly that if in the future there is more clarity to my role and function in the building of the National Cathedral, I remain open, available, and willing to serve at the pleasure of the president and the nation. Regardless of your response to my resignation and inputs, I remain a supporter of the National Cathedral Project and will endeavor to be present to rejoice with the nation when this project is completed. This is a very important paragraph I'm reading. I ask that the Board of Trustees keep my resignation a confidential matter in not leaking it to the media because I do not wish the media or the general public to construe my withdrawal as a sign of a lack of support or belief in the building of the National Cathedral.
So why are you reading it?
This could not be further from the truth. I shall inform the president myself of the matters arising and of my decision to resign because I believe it is now appropriate for me to do so. My prayer is that this committee will reflect deeply on my input over the last few years and recognize my inability to function and continue to serve while these issues mentioned remain obfuscated. I also hope the committee would realize how difficult it has been to come to this decision, considering my respect for the members of this committee, my passion for this project, and my personal relationship with the president. Thank you in advance for your understanding.
Oh, Pana said don't leak that thing. Then if you-
Okay, so then let's separate the issues.
Okay.
It was his wish that the committee would not leak it.
Okay.
But that doesn't prevent a citizen of Ghana
From getting it.
getting a copy of it and making his views
Known.
known to the public.
But
We
he
serve the
was
public.
afraid that it will be construed
Exactly.
wrongly. So
Yeah.
I think it's a responsibility to construe it properly.
Yeah, but
So his point is that if it is leaked, it will be construed as he not supporting the
yeah,
project.
but because we've been able to give you that
the
context,
background.
but the
so,
background.
so it's very clear that we've done that justice. We've done
exactly,
justice to
we've done
that.
that.
We've
But
done
Bernard,
justice to that.
just to sum up, time is almost as fast spent on this matter. You now understand where I've come from on this.
Yes, I do.
You see, because in all good conscience,
Charlie?
Bernard, the lack of transparency,
Charlie.
accountability,
Charlie.
they are just every other week.
Maybe they
something
should-
comes
they
up
should
around
just-
this
they should
building.
just dissolve the whole thing.
Yeah, no, but you see, the
And
thing is
then-
this. The thing is this.
Or they already cost incurred.
They've incurred costs.
So they should do it according to this proposal. Do it small.
Bernard, for me, my
But
concern.
also-
Remember, there's a day I spoke about the church and why I was pained as a Christian by some of the things. Because, Bernard, there is some of the things that have gone wrong with this cathedral are the basics of wrongdoing that our church leaders teach us from Sunday school.
Yeah.
They teach us, these are the basics. So it's not advanced theology. These are the basics that they teach us in Bible school.
Speak the truth. Be consistent.
Be consistent.
Yeah.
These are the things they teach us. And at this level, if you are on a project that has such big questions around it, and then you finish, then you come back and then ask me, oh, we are doing this, which is why I told you from the start, there is no proper buy-in from the Christian community in Ghana for this
And I
project.
think that you are right because of he admits that.
He admits
in the
it.
fundraising.
You are struggling with fundraising because if Ghanaian Christians say they will build this cathedral, Bernard, I say it won't take 1 month.
can
They will put up this cathedral and go and do whatever they
But
want to
not
do
at
in it.
$50 million.
Of course, because a lot of I'm Presbyterian, we will ask questions.
Hey.
You cannot spend 1 cedi of a Presbyterian church's money without accounting.
Do you know session?
Yeah, it will be discussed thoroughly. There will be church forum.
We are EP church.
No, you have session.
They have session. They have session.
That's what I mean. The catechists are related.
I say that the whole narrative around this,
Kate.
where it has been made to look like if you don't support this vision, you don't have Ghana at heart, or you don't believe. I mean, they should put that narrative is completely wrong.
Okay, so let's see how the SRAS issue goes.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick point, Bernard, that you see, at this point, you know, I have always stayed away from critiquing the project. It's a personal decision I've made. But what I want to say is that, look, at this point, the project has lost legitimacy by reason of the exposés that have been made, the scandals around it, and insider voices of conscience like this who have spoken repeatedly, and it would seem that they have not been listened to.
Yeah.
I think the next thing the president has to do is to first of all dissolve
The board of trustees.
entirely. And from this letter, it would seem that some of these things have not come to the attention of the president, because he's been craving an opportunity, if you read the letters,
To speak to the president.
Exactly. And for them to meet the president and bring these things to his
They are
attention.
blocking.
So it should be dissolved, and let's discuss a better way forward for dealing with
enough.
this project if we have to do it.
6 minutes past 9, City Breakfast Show.